So this week we picked some chanterelle mushrooms. As you can see, they're super dirty and need to be cleaned off. So typically I don't wash mushrooms. I would just wipe them off. But these types of mushrooms, the shapes they are and stuff, it's too much. Yeah, see how dirty they are and all the little cracks and crevices. Wiping them off with a damp cloth just isn't really an option. So we are rinsing them off to get that dirt off, and I'm cutting like the very tips off. And then we're gonna slice them up and put them on trays. But so why you don't want to rinse mushrooms is because the mushrooms soak up that water. So if you rinse mushrooms or soak mushrooms and then slice them up and put them in a pan, they have absorbed all that water and they don't brown up. They just kind of end up soggy. But since we are freeze drying these mushrooms, it's fine. I'm not worried about it. It's gonna pull all the moisture out of them, and then I will use these. I'll rehydrate them and put them on top of like pizza or make a risotto out of them. And you can see there's still a little bit of dirt on them, but I have a saying, and I've said it for a long time, a little dirt won't hurt. So here they are on the freeze drying trays, and I forgot to get an end product of them, but they looked pretty much the same coming out of the freeze dryer. This week was also a really big tomato week. As you can see, I'm just rinsing all of these tomatoes in my sink, and before I cut off all the blemishes and core them, and then I just cut them up. You know, I'm not a huge tomato peeler, de-seeder person. I actually hate peeling tomatoes. I do it every once in a while, but it's just not really my thing. With the amount of tomatoes we process at a time, I just don't love peeling that many tomatoes. So I use my, it's just a Ninja blender, and then I blend them up. And today I'm making salsa, and I always make like a restaurant style salsa. So we don't like big, thick, chunky salsa, as you can see here. I am gonna cook this down though to thicken it up just a little bit, and I use my roasting pan, which, since I have made this video, maybe my next video, has died on me, which is really sad. So I put several pitchers of tomatoes, that whole sink of tomatoes actually, I blended them up and put them in the roasting pan. And then I have all these serrano peppers that I picked out of the garden that we're gonna put in there. And then of course, red onion. I don't know if you guys have watched me for any length of time, you know I am a red onion gal. I prefer red onion over all onions. So I pretty much use red onion for everything, no matter what a recipe calls for, because I always have red onion. So I'm just peeling up, putting the red onion in here. I think my video next week, I'll have more of a recipe for you guys to go buy to make this salsa, because I'll probably make it again next week. I'll try to do a little more of a step-by-step. So there's everything blended. Then I blended, I think my video didn't record when I blended all the onion and peppers and cilantro and stuff like that up. So I blended all that up, and then we're adding it to the tomatoes, and I'm just mixing it around, and we're gonna let it cook down. I probably still have to add the spices and stuff here, but yeah, we're just gonna mix this up and let it cook down a bit. So I'm having trouble with my camera this week. I kept losing footage, but here is the end product. My salsa, you can see it's a lot darker and thicker than it was. And I think out of that roasting pan, I got 12 pints. This stuff is so delicious. I know I told you guys I don't peel or de-seed tomatoes, but I have this little food mill for the KitchenAid, and I have not used it with tomatoes yet. So I thought, I'm gonna make spaghetti sauce. Let's go ahead and use this food mill and do tomatoes with it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I should have cooked the tomatoes a little bit before I put them in here, but the instructions say that I can do it raw. So I kind of used, you can see a little, this is the mess it makes, by the way, but I kind of separated it out here. I let some of the juices run, and I kind of caught the pulp. You can see here in the sieve, I guess you would call it, and kind of separated it out like that, so I didn't have to cook the spaghetti sauce down so much, and then just separate it out like that. I'm pouring it into a bowl so I can measure out exactly how much I have, so we can add the right amount of ingredients to can it. But it makes a pretty big mess, and it takes a lot of time. Yeah, here's the mess we have going on here. And it took a while. I love this little food mill, but I think I'm gonna use it more so for like applesauce and stuff like that, which is coming up. We'll be doing that here in the next couple weeks. So this pot is actually all the juice, just that tomato juice that we strained away from the pulp. And I'm just gonna let this simmer, cook down, and then this is the pulp, and you can still see it's pretty thin. We do have other ingredients to add to it, but I don't know if this was my favorite way. So we used half of this box in this sauce, this full box, and that full box over there. So it was about 25 pounds, or I'm sorry, was it 25 pounds? No, it's closer to like 50 pounds of tomatoes. And what we get in the end is probably why I won't mill the tomatoes with that again. So I have all of my green peppers in here. I'm just adding some of that back in there because I don't like big, huge chunks of green pepper in my spaghetti sauce. I'm not a huge fan of green peppers anyway, but this is what the recipe called for. And yeah, so I'm actually using the recipe, just a different process. I'm using the recipe from that 1870s homestead. I'm using her spaghetti sauce recipe, just using a different technique to do it. But like I said, next time I do this, which I plan on doing it again, I won't be milling all of those tomatoes like that. So there I am adding the green peppers in. It turns out extremely delicious. I mean, it turns out really, really good, but I feel like I lost a lot of volume by milling it the way that I did. So here we are doing onions. I just told you I love red onions, but I used almost all of my green onions, and I'm down at my mom's house. We're actually canning this together. You just don't really see her in the videos, but she had bought some onions to put into the spaghetti sauce, and she bought white onions, which is totally fine. So we're using white onions here, and I'm gonna do the same thing that I did with the green pepper. I am just gonna blend it up. I'm not a chunky salsa person. I'm not a chunky spaghetti sauce person. I want it pureed up and in small pieces. I like everything to be semi-smooth. So that's what we did. I probably added the garlic to this as well, and then blended it up in there. Oh, yep, here I am. Peeling garlic. I think I did in this recipe, I think I did both of these heads of garlic. And this is a good trick, especially if you're not going to be grating your garlic. You just pound that garlic with the flat side of your knife, and they just pop right out of those papers. Super easy. And then I just blend them up with the onion and get it all in there. And like I said, this recipe is the 1870s homestead. She's on YouTube. This is her spaghetti sauce recipe, and it turned out delicious. And so if you want the recipe, definitely go check her out. I didn't really want to do a tutorial on it because I had never tried it before, but it turned out really good. And again, we used a different process than she did. You know, she didn't mill her tomatoes or anything like that, but it still turned out really, really good. And we've already used some of it. So here we are adding all the seasonings the recipe calls for, and which some of the ingredients that this recipe calls for, you wouldn't think that they would be used in a spaghetti sauce, but everything comes together really, really nicely, and it turned out really good. Oh, so one thing that she added that we did not were, I think it called for tomato paste. And see, this recipe calls for soy sauce and Worcestershire sauce. So her recipe called for tomato paste, and I didn't have tomato paste, but I did have powdered tomato that I got from Azure. And so I used that in there to help thicken that up. So here I am just preparing the cans for canning. So we're canning in quarts, and I just put 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in each quart to make sure the acidity is where it needs to be at. And then I just fill the cans and process them. Also, one thing you never want to forget is to wipe the rims of your jars. We wipe it with white vinegar because it cuts through pretty much anything you want. Tighten it fingertip tight, and then we're putting it in the jar. I always second guess my fingertip tight, so sometimes I have to redo it. But we are water bathing these, which is why we added the lemon juice. So I'm adding these to the water bath canner just one at a time. It's not the most efficient way. It wasn't my favorite way to add them, but here we go. We have them all added in, and this, luckily they were done because the power went out. So I'm showing you that the power has gone out, but luckily it had finished, and they were cooling in the water bath still when the power went out. So we got them done, and they got to cool, and we got to listen to pings by candlelight. But I'm happy it didn't go out while we were in the middle of canning them. The next day the power was back on, and we canned the juice from those tomatoes. I know they look weird, but you just shake them up and it's just tomato juice. I add it to chili mainly is what I use these for. So just another thing to put on the shelf. And then here I am using my blender again. I'm just making some, I think just crushed tomatoes, but I'm using my blender, skins on, everything. I don't notice them at all. I don't know if it's because I just blend them up or what, but yep, I just use my blender. I don't think I blend these up quite as much as I do the salsa. And then I just add them to my roaster pan. I cooked them down a little bit, not a ton, but I'm adding some salt to each of the jars. I'm thinking like a half a teaspoon or something like that. And then since I'm water bathing these, I am adding a tablespoon of lemon juice per pint to these. And this was that half a box of tomatoes that we had left over that I showed you a little while ago. And I just used that to make these crushed tomatoes. We have bought a lot of tomatoes from a local farmer because we had major soil issues this year. And this farmer I've gotten to know really well, and yeah, we have purchased a lot from her. So or wiping the rims. As you can see, we got 8 jars out of that half a box, which was roughly 12 to 15 pounds of tomatoes. I did cook it down a little bit, so. If you couldn't tell from the video, I was having a few problems this week with losing footage. I think I've figured everything out, and I've pieced all my clips together for next week's video, and I think everything is there. So if you're still here with me this week, thank you so much. I don't know how many clips of footage I lost, but I know there are definitely some missing, especially stuff like pulling stuff out of the canner. But I really contemplated not even posting this video this week, but if it gives anybody some motivation to preserve or just to do something little, then I wanted to post it and get it out there. But next week's video I'm already working on, and I hope to have that up really soon. And as far as I can tell, no clips are missing. So if you are still here by the end of this video, thank you so much. And comment down below, let me know what you preserved this week, because I need ideas too. I don't have all the answers, but anyway, thank you guys so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.